So the Disney Plus Willow series has come and gone with very little fanfare, although there was a lot of outrage at the beginning when the show started because, gay characters or whatever. And a lot of fans seem to be upset and disappointed. Now, I'm going to be upfront. I am not a fan or a longtime fan of the Willow series. I had never even heard of Willow until it was a joke in the Kick-Assia 2 Nostalgia Critic movie. I didn't know what the hell Willow was. So when they announced that there was a Willow show coming, I didn't care, had no interest. I only watched the movie the night before the series dropped on Disney Plus. So this review is going to be spoiler-filled. Might do a non-spoiler a little bit at the beginning and get more into spoilers as it goes on. This video is coming from the perspective of someone who is brand new to this series, has no huge attachment to anything, has no crazy in-depth knowledge about the lore. This is not Star Wars to me. This is not Ghostbusters. This is not Scooby-Doo. Looking at you, Velma. This is not Power Rangers. This is not Marvel, Justice League. It's none of that. So I'm coming at this as fresh as I can. And, some people are upset about it. Some people I don't quite believe they're outraged because this is one of those shows where it's easy to pick on and get views and clicks, whatever. I'm just going to give my serious and unfiltered opinions about this series on Disney+. I'm Brogi Naric, and we're going to talk about Willow. Before we get into it, thanks for clicking on the video. If you like what you see, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check out other content on this channel. We're still growing, we can use your help. So, Willow, once again, franchise that I'm not in love with. I had no interest in seeing this show, but the more I saw of the trailers, kind of, got me into it. It's, fantasy, sword and sorcery. That's cool. I think the movie's good. Looking it up, it did terrible at the box office. It bombed. I thought it was a pretty solid movie. The story of the young Nelwyn farmer who finds this human baby who is the chosen one to destroy this evil queen, and he's trying to get the baby to the rightful people, and he ends up working with this goofy sort of bandit warrior guy, and they go on this journey to save their kingdom. It was one of those 80 movies that wasn't afraid to kind of get dark. It didn't get too dark, but it's darker than most Marvel movies, honestly, but in intense too. I appreciated that. It was very 80s in that way. Going into that with that limited knowledge, going into the show, all these new characters, I have to say I enjoyed the show. I thought it was a good show, especially after seeing stuff like House of the Dragon, which is one end of the spectrum on the whole sword and sorcery fantasy. Was more grounded and dark and gritty. And then you got something like House of Power, which is more fantasy and more big budgeted and very, literal and trying to be flowery, but just kind of slow and boring. I kind of feel like Willow is kind of in the middle of both shows, where it has some good action, but it's also sort of lighthearted, but it's not too highbrow, or at least trying to be too highbrow to, sound like it's Jade, Tolkien or anything like that. And it's having this fun, but it's also being adventurous, but it's also sort of modern at the same time. It's a weird hodgepodge of things. There's some stuff I really enjoy about the series. There's a couple of things I don't like, but I do think some of the outrage is a bit over the top. But then once again, I'm not like some huge diehard Willow fan, and I don't think most of the people complain about it really are either. This is something to complain about. So the Willow series picks up about 25 or so years after the previous movie, and the ancient evil that was possessing the evil queen of the first movie is coming back. The crone is coming back, and they're after the children of the queen and Mad Mardigan. The goons come in, they kidnap the son, so a group of characters go out to travel, find him. They come across Willow, because they're going to need his help, because he's a powerful sorcerer. And one of the characters that come along with them, this little girl, turns out to be the grown-up baby from the first movie, who is the Lord Dannon, who is the chosen one, the one who's all-powerful, who will be the empress of the good guys and will defeat the crone and save the world. The team is traveling to find the brother who was stolen, but also Willow is trying to train her to take up her role, to be the one to save everyone. But Willow has like a dark secret that he's kind of seeing. Some things in the future might not be all that it's going to be. Certain things might, not work out in the future. So he's got to deal with that as well. And it's just the characters hanging out and going on these crazy, adventures. Now I'm going to give some pros and cons on what I liked about the show to decide whether you should check it out. Warwick Davis returns as Willow. This is the guy that was Leprechaun in the Hood. He's been in Hollywood for a long time. And he was great in this. I really enjoyed him in the movie, and I thought he was pretty fun in the series as well. Now I know he is a little different. They're kind of like doing Luke Skywalker, like they did in the Last Jedi, where he's older, he's a little more crotchety, although he's not as hateful as that version of Luke was. But he doesn't do as much. Granted, the show is called Willow, but he's there. The story is about Aurora Dannon, which is what the movie was about. Only thing is, she's now an adult, so she can do more. And Willow is definitely taking the back seat. But I don't think that was bad because he's older. They're gonna let the newer people get their do their stuff. So I didn't like that he was a little weaker. Like, I felt like there was more he could have done, because there are some moments where it's like, dude, if you got some magic, it would be very helpful. But Warwick Davis was fun. I like seeing him in the role. I like his chemistry with the characters. They didn't like make him like that idealized hero, because just like in the movie, he's a lowly guy who's trying to be the best sorcerer, but he's still fallible. And I like that they did keep that. They didn't make him this all-powerful guy, kind of like what people tend to idolize Luke Skywalker, which was not a bad thing, but I like that they kept him still sort of common ground. But I do wish they would have allowed that character to be a little more active when it came to the action, because there is this whole thing where he's getting older, he's a little weaker, so he tries to limit his magic, and it's a little, I wish they could change that. The cast in general, I really enjoyed this cast. I think this is a fun cast of characters, except for one of the main characters, which we can get into. But overall, I thought the dynamic between everyone was really good. The humor, I thought, was pretty fun. Like I said, the interactions between the characters, some fun stuff. Lighthearted, not too serious. Some goofy stuff, but not as goofy as the movie, like with stuff with the brownies and stuff like that, or Matt Mardigan, doing Matt Mardigan around and all that. It's not quite that silly. But then the balance, when it gets to the action, is serious, which is the thing that I enjoyed with the movie from the 80s. That's the thing that they used to do a lot in the 80s. When the action happened, it was serious. And then this one, they kept it very serious. It's a lot more brutal than what you would, not brutal, but more intense than what you would tend to see in some Marvel movies. The action and the way it is, Lucasfilms is very much more like The Mandalorian, especially like Mandalorian Season 1, where they kept it serious when it came to the action. And I appreciate that a lot in this show. Use of practical and special effects I thought was really good. As the show went on, I was like, yo, they really put some money into this. Like, Disney put a good chunk of change in this, especially towards the end when we get to the bad guy fight and all that. I was like, this is not quite movie quality, but it's very high level production. It felt like old school Lucasfilms, old school Jim Henson stuff, and I love seeing that in a modern setting where they didn't feel the need to CGI everything, and it makes it feel realer. I like the various character designs, the costumes that they had. Looks really good. Longer episodes, which is something that a lot of people complain. I've complained about with the MCU shows. Is the show is 35 minutes, but it's only really like 20 minutes of the show. These episodes were longer, where they were maybe around 50 to 55-ish minutes, and you'd get a good like 40, 45 minutes of an actual show. That's a change I would like to see happen with more of these shows. The world and the lore of this universe, the Willow universe, some of it is nonsense. I don't care. You can follow it. It's not too complicated or anything, but it's fun. I enjoyed that. All right, let me get some of the superficial cons out of the way first. Some of the music in this, they use modern music. It kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, it shouldn't bug me, but it kind of bugs me that there was modern music in this sort of fantasy setting. I've seen other things that's been fantasy settings and there's modern music, but for some reason it kind of threw me off. They do use shitty covers of classic songs. That just bugs me in anything. If you're gonna use a song, just use the original or a good cover. Don't use a crappy modern or just lame cover of classic songs. They do that throughout this series. It kind of bugged me a little bit. There are some odd editing at times, like there's a couple of sequences, like action sequences, where the editing looks weird or there's like a big story element. There's one big example in episode 3 where there's a smoke bomb thrown and then characters disappear. It's bad. Some of it is weird. It happens from time to time. There is some odd pacing and like lack of urgency at times, because they're on this mission to go save the prince and they're on a journey. There'll be times where they're like, we got to do this, and then they'll just stop and just hang out and do something else. Now, it's odd, but that also happened in the original movie too. They do that a couple of times in the original movie. So I don't know if that's just a Willow thing. That's just the way they want to write this, but it is noticeable, and I don't know. It stuck out to me. One of the bigger problems though is the character of Kit Phantolos, played by Ruby Cruz. she's kind of the main character of the series because the main character is really a Laura Dannon character, Kit, who is the daughter of Matt Mardigan and the Queen, and they kind of butt heads. And Kit is a very unlikable asshole for most of the series. Like, she is a straight hater. Straight hater. She's a princess, but she doesn't want to be a princess. She wants to be this warrior. Her brother gets taken away, so she's eager to go find her brother, but she's also eager to find out where her dad is. Her dad is missing. He's played by Val Kilmer. He's not in the series for, real world health reasons. She's worried about him. Then Allura pops up, and then she's all mad at Allura because Allura is like, the main focus, and she's just hating. She's just hating the whole time. She's an asshole. She's cocky to everybody. Even the people that like her girlfriend, who will become her girlfriend later, even likes her. And she gets mad at her girlfriend because she wants to do, her own thing as opposed to following her. She's a shitty character. And she kind of gets better because they try to change it towards the end. I don't think it quite works, but they're trying. At least they're trying. Cause it was a weird take, but yeah, Kit is kind of a con. But overall, I thought the show was fun. It's an adventure, it's fantasy, and I enjoyed it. I had fun watching the series. I'm not going to nitpick every little thing. You can complain about, they're using modern vernacular in a fantasy world. It's a fantasy world, but it's also modern. It happens. I don't know. You can nitpick that if you want. If I was to give it a grade, I would give it a B+ or 8.5 out of 10. Solid show. Worth checking out. If you want some fun adventures, some wackiness, and you want to see, you don't want to have it be too over the top in terms of seriousness, in terms of like the hoity-toityness, like Rings of Power, and you don't want to necessarily have super gritty incest and all of that stuff with House of Dragons. I think this is a good in between, and I want to see more. I'm going to get into spoilers now, and I'm going to break down the characters that I liked in this series, from like the main characters from my favorite to least favorite. I'm going to start off with Thraxus Borman, who was played by Amar Chadha-Patel. First time seeing this guy, but he was awesome. I like Borman. He's the comic relief. He's a badass dude who was Matt Mardigan's former squire and sort of surrogate son, and he's trying to redeem himself for failing Matt Mardigan, because him, Matt Mardigan, and his character Allagash, who was played by Chris Slater, they went on this mission. Matt Mardigan sacrificed himself to go through a portal to go fight the evil creature that's going to destroy the planet, the worm, and Borman got captured. He broke out of prison and he felt bad, so he didn't go back to the Queen because he didn't want to have to explain anything. He was, living as, he's a scoundrel basically, very much like Matt Mardigan. He's a Matt Mardigan-esque character, and goofy, but he's also ladies' man, all of that type of stuff. And he was a fun character. I enjoyed him a lot. Number 2 would be Willow, played by Warwick Davis. It was fun to see him in this. I thought he had great chemistry with all of the characters, even though Willow was kind of an asshole in this story, which some of it made sense because, Willow, he's always been picked on for being small. He's also been picked on by his own people for being kind of a goof. And I kind of like that, even though he is like I forget what he's called, like he's the high sorcerer amongst his people, even then they still kind of treat him like, it's still Willow, and I kind of like that. It's interesting how they got around his family, because he had a wife and he had a son and a daughter, and only him and his daughter, who was played by Warwick Davis' actual daughter, which I thought was nice. And they do give us a little explanation in one line towards the end, where it's like, well, his wife died not too long after the end of the first movie. His son ran away. Maybe he's passed on too. We don't know. He got shitted on by the Queen because he wanted to help train Allura when she was a baby, but the Queen was just like, I don't think you're that good at your job, and I don't think we should do this. And he was pissed off about that. He's older and weaker. His powers don't work all the time, which I thought was odd that he didn't, use his powers as much. I thought it was a weird trope. It's somewhat like Luke, like I said in The Last Jedi, but not quite as bad. But I still enjoyed him. And he's got like a fucking flamethrower. Like, that was very random. He had a flamethrower, and then he just disappeared. I wish they could have used that more, because I thought that was interesting. Like, this world kind of has modern-ish technology a little bit, but it's more fantasy. And but he was fun. I like Willow. Next would be the chosen girl, the chosen one, Lord Dannon, played by Ellie Bainber, who I was not familiar with, but she was fun. Now initially I thought Kit was gonna be a Lord Dannon, and she was just raised to be Matt Bartigan and Source's kid, and then it would be revealed that actually no, you're a Lord Dannon, but that was not the case. It was the random blonde baker girl who was dating the prince, who's his new girlfriend. And I was thrown off initially because of the blonde hair, and I was like, wasn't the baby like a redhead? And as the show went on, her hair did slowly, she used more magic. Her hair did slowly turn from blonde to red. Because it was kind of weirding me out. I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I put two and two together. She's, struggling with not wanting to deal with this magic stuff, but she has to, actually get some training. I like the stuff where she's like a goof and she's messing it up, and Willow's trying to make the magic stick. Then there's moments where she's kind of getting it, but she's very powerful. So when she gets it just a little bit, it really works. And I also love the stuff with her and the character Graydon, her little weird sort of love triangle thing kind of going on, because she wants to save her boyfriend Eric, but she's hanging out with this guy Graydon. She's they're vibing and everything, which I adored those two together. The stuff with Valor and Kit as the later episodes come on, where they're trying to be friendly. Like I said, they do attempt to make up for Kit being such a bitch towards her at the beginning of the series. It doesn't all work, but I at least like the moment, I think it was episode 6, where she hears her dad's voice and she wants to go save him, and Laura tells her, like, no, you're going to get lost in that void or whatever, so don't do it. And she gets mad at Laura because she's like, my dad risked his life to save you. He never wanted to be with me or my brother, and for some reason he always chose you over us. And Laura tells her, like, no, your dad was trying to do the right thing. And Willow's like, no, your dad was trying to do the right thing, and he trusts them to protect Laura, even though he was supposed to protect Laura. Like, they try to make it, smooth it over. Not all gonna work because it was so heavy-handed at the beginning, but I love Laura. Next is Jade, played by Erin Kellyman. She's been popping up in a number of Disney projects. She was in Solo. She was the shitty leader of the Flag Smashers in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And every time she pops up, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know why Disney keeps trying to push her. I don't think she's all that. But this role is Jade Claymore. I enjoyed her in this role. This was the first thing she was in Disney-wise that I really liked her in. And she's this badass knight in training, and she's best friends with Kit. Also is like kind of her bodyguard, and also her girlfriend, basically, as we find out. And that's the whole thing. People got upset about that, the gay characters existing. I like that these two characters are gay, they're lesbians, and the show does not shy away from that. It's there early on, where you kind of get a hint of it, and then not too long after they kind of confirm that there is something going on. And they don't shy away from it. They don't, what is it called? Queer baiting. They don't do any of that. It's pretty much there. There's a dynamic between the two. And we do see that relationship tend to grow. And I appreciate that. It was surprising that Disney was so upfront and so forward with the lesbian characters, with the gay characters, which was good to see. Because sometimes, Disney has a history of, we'll have gay characters, but they're in the background. And they'll be in like a 2-second scene that we can cut out, but I like that they stuck with it. And they also had two different dynamic characters who didn't just rely on, hey, we're gay. They had other stuff going on. Her mentor turns evil. He gets possessed by the bad guys, and she later on has to kill him to take him out of his misery. The leader of the rogue group, the Bone Reavers, Scorpia, is her sister, which makes sense because they do look similar. And I was like, I thought that was going to be like her mom or something, but it's like, no, that's her sister. She reveals to her, like, the villain from the first movie, General Kale, is her dad. Because General Kale had a bunch of different kids. He had a bunch of different concubines or whatever, and she's one of the few kids that are still alive. She also reveals to her that her people worked for Queen Bad Mortar, who was the villain of the first movie, but they were treated like shit, so Queen Backmortar took care of them in terms of loyalty for her, and then once she fell, the new kingdom shitted on those people and essentially enslaved them, and her group, the Bone Reavers, are like this weird hodgepodge of like outcasts who are trying to survive. They're not quite as evil as they're depicted, because she was raised by her enslavers to be an enemy against her own people, which I think is interesting. I think that's a very interesting dynamic, and hopefully there's going to be like a resolution or some continuation of that once Jade gets back to the kingdom, where she has a conversation with the queen about, like, bitch, why did you lie to me? Telling telling me that the bad guy, even though he was a bad guy, that dude was my dad and lied that he killed my mom and there was someone else who killed my mom and all this. I thought that was an interesting dynamic. She's been lied to her whole life. And I know if it was me, I'd feel some type of way about it.
My life is a lie. My life is a lie. Somebody's got to get stabbed. Somebody's got to get stabbed.
Next up is Prince Graydon, played by Tony Revolari. He was very annoying in the earlier episodes. The only reason he was annoying was because he was very meek. He's very nerdy and shy. He didn't really talk that much. He looked like he didn't want to be there, which is the case. He's the prince who was going to be in this forced arranged marriage with Kit. Kit doesn't want to be married to some guy she doesn't know, and he doesn't really want to do it, but his dad is forcing him to do it because he's his only son. We find out he's got like a dark past, and basically he starts off very quiet and very meek, but then once he finds out that Allura is Laura Dan, and he starts to talk to her more, they start a budding relationship. And we also find out some stuff like when he was a young kid, he accidentally, but it's an accident, but he killed his older brother and pushed him out of a tree, and he's dealing with that. But he's got a latent magic ability, which was kind of hinted at, and then they just go full force into it where Willow makes him his new apprentice. He's going to be the new Willow, essentially. He's going to train him to be a great sorcerer. And he was a fun character. Tony Revolari, I like him as an actor. And as the show went on, the comedy bits with him trying to figure out how he can talk to Laura because he's got a crush on her, but he knows that she's still, trying to be with Eric, and that dynamic. I thought it was great. It was fun too. And then he dies. Spoilers. This is spoiler section. He dies at the last episode, which I thought was fucked up that they killed him. But I was like, wait a second. He's too fun of a character to let him go like that. And he's still around in some weird nebulous thing, and he sees evil Laura, and she wants to make a deal with him, which I don't know if that's a vision of the future or he's in some weird void. I don't know how they're going to explain that, but he's going to come back, and I thought he was a fun character. Next is going to be Kit, played by Ruby Cruz, who, once again, I will say, Kit, played by Ruby Cruz, and Eric, played by Dempsey Burke of Fire. I thought they were good casting in terms of them looking like they could potentially be the daughters of Sorsa and Mad Mardigan. I thought they in terms of casting and their looks, I thought they did a good job. She's kind of like her mom, where she's, not a nice person, because her mom was a bad guy in the first movie, but she's just an asshole. She's a hating ass princess. She's just hating on Allura, as I've already said. Very headstrong. She's cocky. They take a little while for her to soften up. I think a little bit longer than they needed to, for her to soften up and try to be likable. Because by the end, when she was softening up, I did like her more. The Chimerian Cuirass and the Lux Arcana, that's random mystical bullshit. It's basically a suit of armor that protects her, and she was chosen to wear it. I'm assuming her dad would have been as well, but he, went away trying to find it. She's not the best character, I will say. She's not the best character. And the show does go out of its way to make her not like her. But I like the actress. And she does well in the dramatic scenes, like when she's breaking down and getting pissed off at Allura, or her interactions with Jade, where she's trying not to say she loves her, but then she does say she loves her, and all that relationship bullshit, which I enjoyed that. And I only have Eric below her because Eric is not in the show that much. He's at the beginning, and he's mostly at the end. So, I'm not going to put him necessarily above Kit. He's very limited in the show. But he's the son of Queen Sorsa and Mad Mardigan. Handsome, goofy ladies' man who's kind of dumb. Very much like his dad, basically. He's very much like his dad because even, like Mad Mardigan was a goofball in the movies, but when it came to that action, he could swing a sword. He knew how to fight, and Eric was the same way. And I like the actor and his role when he turns evil. He gets possessed by the crone who's posing as a girl named Lily, and him being super focused and trying to fight, like when she puts all the evil into him and he turns evil and he's all trying to kill everyone. And that moment where he's like, I am your king, like that stuff was great. I enjoyed that. The show ends with them revealing that they at least have 2 more seasons in mind. So if we can at least get 2 more seasons, I'd be fine with that. I don't need any more than that. And Disney needs content, and I don't know how well it's doing in the viewership, but I hope it's doing well enough. I've seen more people talk about this than that fucking National Treasure show, so, I don't know. I had problems, but I didn't think it was the worst thing ever. I've seen better stuff. I like this, like I said, I like this more than Rings of Power, and it's like half the budget of Rings of Power. I like the characters, and it's just fun and fantasy adventure, you know. And that's all I really wanted, and that's what I got. So that's my thoughts on the Willow series. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Once again, don't forget to like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more.